that if you're going to look at Rams players, there's only 2 in fantasy worth considering. Trey Mason is the first as an RB2. It's still a tough matchup for him. And then at a flex, I think Kenny Britt. With Brian Quick out, somebody's got to step up and fill that vacuum. And so far, I think Kenny Britt looks to be that guy. If you're playing him, you're probably in a desperate situation. It's okay that he's rostered, but I think to play him over other players, you should think twice before you do that. In terms of the 49ers, I like most of their players. Colin Kaepernick against the defense, allowing 25.2 fantasy points allowed to the position. Frank Gore against the defense, allowing 16.5 fantasy points allowed to the position. Michael Crabtree against the defense, allowing 25 fantasy points to the position. And then the 49ers defense going against a team that gives up 12.71 fantasy points allowed, making them a top 5 start this week. Now, I want to mention Vernon Davis. He's certainly a player you can start this week, but understand, for him to do something significant, he's going to need to score. But this particular week, similar to other weeks that we've had so far this season, there is sort of a draft in matchups for the good tight ends in good situations against teams that either have a difficult time defending the position or don't mind that position actually putting some points up against it because they see it as a position that, hey, if the tight end scores, that's okay. We just want to stop everybody else. So keep that in mind when playing Vernon Davis. I like the 49ers at home, Keith.
All righty. We agree on way too much lately, by the way. Just so you know.
Great minds, my friend. Great minds.
585-633-7487 with your fantasy football lineup questions. Once again, 585-633-7487. Denver Broncos traveling to the New England Patriots. This would be the marquee matchup of the week. Remember when we were all piling dirt on Tom Brady and the New England Patriots? Okay, well, I was anyway. But
it was you and it was Steve, not me.
He's not here to defend himself. So
what's that?
He's not here to defend himself, so I'll give him a pass on that. But I made those comments after the Kansas City game where not only did they play bad, but they looked like they had no clue whatsoever and didn't look like they had the personnel to make a difference, to do anything with it. They figured it out. Tip your cap. I was wrong, and I don't say that very often. Not in public, anyway. But that being said, it's a new world for the New England Patriots. And now they go to Denver and face a team that is on as much of a roll. I'm sorry, Denver travels to New England. Denver's on as much of a roll as anybody, as the Patriots. Belichick loves screwing with Manning. He just does. You can take all the numbers and you can throw them out. This is as psychological a game as anything you'll ever see in the NFL. And when it comes to that, Belichick and the Patriots have Manning's number. I'm picking the Patriots to continue their march to the sea.
Yeah, I can't see that happening this week. You've got the number 1 scoring offense going against a defense that allows, on average, 22 points per game, and the Broncos defense allows 20. I just can't see how the Broncos don't beat the average and don't do it handily against the Patriots. There's no team like the Broncos that the Patriots have faced, and in the past, and last year specifically, and I think this was a problem with Peyton Manning. One, I think he was a bit psyched out, and two, I don't think he had the right personnel on the field. One of the things that we've seen change with this team by the addition of Emmanuel Sanders, and now that Wes Welker is back, and we also saw this with the Steelers, you're getting offenses that they have a man open. They have a man open, and he's able to hit that man. That's why a guy like Brandon LaFell has suddenly surged and become a fantasy football starlet, or Julian Edelman last season, and suddenly Rob Gronkowski is the old Rob Gronkowski. But the Broncos have had all those players since week 1. And I'm going to take the Broncos in this one. I understand the side and the reason for taking the Patriots, but I think this year, if you look at which one has the better team, it's definitely the Broncos. I've mentioned a bunch of players, and I think you got to start them all. Wes Welker is sort of a wide receiver flex, and I think you consider him with the other players. His role might be actually dwindling now officially because he just really hasn't done too much. This is a great matchup for anybody that has Ronnie Hillman. At a minimum, he's going to get somewhere around 130 yards, which is what the Patriots are allowing on the ground on average. For the Patriots, you start your Tom Brady, your Brandon LaFell, your Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski, Shane Vereen. I think it makes for a great start. And Cyrus Gray, I like him, but he's going to take Stephen Ridley's spot, and you're going to have to look at him as a flex for right now. And the reason being, if this game immediately turns into a shootout, or immediately they don't establish some sort of a running game, Cyrus Gray is going to get sort of washed out of the equation. And you have to sort of evaluate that in terms of, do you play somebody in fantasy football or don't you? But in any case, Bronco up.
Is that a thing, Bronco up?
It is, I believe. I do believe.
God, I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't think so. Anyway, the 0-7 Oakland Raiders traveled to the Seattle Seahawks. While the Seahawks have been far from the lights-out team that destroyed Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl last year, they are still the most talented defense, even if they have lost something on offense. And the Raiders, they're still the Raiders. I mean, there's just no way around it. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, Derek Carr may be the quarterback of the future. I don't have any qualms about Derek Carr. They just don't score enough points. They're averaging 15 points a game, and they're going to go face the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle, a very tough place to play with a rookie quarterback. It's just not going to happen. That the 26 points that they're averaging allowed on the defensive side of the ball, it's just not going to get any better this week. I'm picking the Seahawks at home.
Yeah. Raiders have the same problem as some of the other teams we've talked about. They just can't score. You are not going to be a contender averaging 15 points per game against a team that's averaging closer to 25. Look at, in terms of fantasy, obviously your big playmakers are going to be on the Seahawks, and probably the top one's going to be Marshawn Lynch. I know he's been struggling as of late, but don't give up on him, especially in a game where he's going up against a team giving up 130 rush yards and a total of 7 TDs to date. Keep Russell Wilson active. They're giving up close to 23 fantasy points per game to the position, and that includes 12 TDs to date. And I got to love the Seahawks defense. This is a good week for them after the kind of game they played last week against the Panthers to just thrash the Raiders. So look for that to happen. If you're going to look at the Raiders, Darren McFadden's a decent enough flex. James Jones, a decent enough wide receiver 3. And really the player I like for them, because this is a tough week on tight ends with all the teams on buys, is Michael Rivera. Consider him if you have a problem filling that spot, because this is a Seahawks team which, for whatever reason, is awful defending tight ends, giving up slightly better than 10 fantasy points on average, and that's in just standard scoring leagues. Taking the Seahawks on the road, Keith. I'm sorry, at home. In the Great Northwest.
Oh, you were good. You were fine before that.
Thanks.
Okay. Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know, I need more. I think I need more coffee. Like the double shot of espresso, Legrand something just wasn't enough.
We'll start introducing you as Twitch Saranteas.
There we go.
There you go. He's had double espresso, folks. This should be a wild ride. The Baltimore Ravens travel to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Both teams 5-3. The Steelers, you tell me if you can figure out what this team is, because I sure as heck can't. One week, Roethlisberger's throwing 522 yards. The next week, they're losing to Tampa Bay. I just don't get this team. They are all over the board. And as a Le'Veon Bell owner, really does not excite me at all. And the same thing with Baltimore, though. What do you expect? I mean, their defense plays well. They're only averaging 17 points a game, just under 17 points a game. Their offense is putting up 27 a game. You know, they're 2-2 on the road, which is all you can expect in the NFL as far as winning on the road. And then they go into Pittsburgh, a division game. When it comes to these hated division rivalry games, I always pick the home team, and I'm going to do it again this time, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know, I am too, but not because they're playing at home. What's intriguing about this game is back in week 2, when the last time they played in Baltimore, the Ravens spanked the Steelers 21-6. I mean, that's ugly. That's nowhere good. That's bad on Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. But the problem is it's week 9 and they're just a different team. That having been said, if you look at last week, we've seen their offense open. I think they've discovered something they never knew that existed. But don't chase the numbers. Don't treat Ben Roethlisberger as any more than what he is this week, which is a low QB1, and that's because of this Ravens defense. Okay, now if you're looking around to see who you got to play, Big Ben is the low QB1, as I mentioned. Le'Veon Bell is an always must start, especially in a game like this in this offense. I like Antonio Brown. You never sit that man for any reason whatsoever, especially in this game, because he's played the Ravens enough times that he can excel despite the matchup. And I like this Martavis Bryant. He has opened up their offense. Ben Roethlisberger it seems confident throwing him the football without hesitation, and he scored twice already. So you got to give him those things. And if you picked him up, he's a flex option right now. Start Joe Flacco. He had a couple of TDs against the Steelers last time they played. Justin Forsett showed up on the injury report today. I'm not so sure how serious the issue is, but put it this way: if he starts, he's a must start against the Steelers' rush defense, which struggles. And if he doesn't play, then move Lorenzo Taliaferro up and put him right in. Then you start Steve Smith, you start Torrey Smith. You can consider the Ravens DST, but it's not going to be a good week for them. And basically, by the narrowest of margins, the Ravens get clipped in the Steel City.
Ravens? You mean like wings clipped? Is that the pun you were going for?
Yes.
Okay, because they're a bird. I get it. All right.
I could have said they were going to get scalped, I guess. But
no, yeah.
Apparently, that doesn't work there either.
Oh gosh, yeah, gosh. I'd hate to see you with a little bit of alcohol in you.
Yeah.
That is a show. That is a separate show. We'll air that on Sunday mornings.
Absolutely, people. If you don't feel like sending in your fantasy football questions, send in some suggestions for these sort of closing phrases or expressions for us to transition to the next game.
585-633-7487 if you want to call in with your lineup questions for Jim. 585-633-7487. We're in week 9 already. The season has just flown by. Counting this week, you probably have 5 weeks left in your fantasy football season, so there is no time to waste. Get as much input as you can. If you're not going to call in, head over to thefantasygreek.com and check out everything that Jim's got going on. The Skybox membership is worth every dime. Use the plethora of knowledge that Jim has provided for you on that website. Or you can just
you too, Keith. You're one of the writers for the site, and you do a fantastic job in your coverage of the football games.
He's just being nice, folks, because you don't see the feedback emails I get after I file my reports. But anyway, the last game of the week, the Indianapolis Colts travel to the New York Giants, the Monday Nighter. The 3-4 Giants versus the 5-3 Colts, who, the Colts have just been playing phenomenal football all over. I know they lost last week, but they lost to a quarterback that threw for 522 yards. The downside of that was that the Colts secondary had been playing pretty good leading up into that game. But what are you going to do when opposing quarterback drops 5 bills on you? You just kind of stop talking about how well your secondary is playing for a week anyway. That being said, they're facing the New York Football Giants, a team that looked god-awful, horrific early on, and strung together a couple wins, and now they sit 3-4, coming off a bye. The last time we saw them, they were losing to the Dallas Cowboys 31-21, and the week before that, they were shut out by the Philadelphia Eagles 27-0. So what happens here? Well, I really think we are seeing, and I'm not the only one to say this. I'm not the first one. I'm not pulling the wool off of anybody's eyes or whatever. Andrew Luck is beginning his ascension into that upper echelon top 3 talk in the league as far as quarterbacks, as far as players, really. And he's going to go into New York, and he's going to win this game all by himself if he has to. But I'm picking the Colts.
Keith, I have to agree with you on this game as well. It's really hard not to look at this and say, the Colts